What's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning into the Local Crown podcast, where we're going to teach you how to wage war on your competition and earn your local crown, also known as the top spot on Google.
What is up, Local Crown entrepreneurs? I am your host, Antonia, and today I am with Master Communicator Brenden, and I am super excited for our show today. So I'm gonna get right into it. Brenden, how about you tell our audience that don't know about you yet what you do, how you got here, and what you've been moving with your business?
Of course. So great to be here, Antonia. Thanks so much for having me. So hi everyone. My name is Brenden. I'm the founder of Master Talk. Master Talk's a YouTube channel that I started to help the world master the art of communication and public speaking. And I also have a coaching practice where I train executives and entrepreneurs on how to become top 1% communicators in their industries. And I would say the short story and how I got started, to make a long story short, went to university, business school, did these things called case competitions. Think of it like professional sports, but for nerds. So other guys my age were playing football or baseball or basketball or some other dangerous thing that I probably wouldn't be doing. I did presentations competitively, and I accidentally got really good at coaching other people how to speak, started making YouTube videos in my mom's basement. Then a few years later, Master Talk turned into a business, much more than just a side hustle passion project.
Awesome. That's so cool. Yeah. I mean, not a lot of people think of competitive speaking in college, but I bet that is like a whole different level of competition in itself, right?
Oh yeah, it's really hard to explain it to people, you know. And I started guesting on podcasts, they'd be like, I don't get it.
Yeah. Like, what? Yeah, like how do you get scored? Yeah, that's cool. Do they score you on like tonality and things like that, or what kind of was the score system?
Yeah, I rarely get asked that question, so I'm glad you asked, Antonia. Not to bore people too much, but just so people understand the context of this. Literally, people fly, and it's weird. People take a flight, pre-pandemic, obviously, from Australia to Montreal.
Oh my gosh.
Their business school spends thousands of dollars on these students, and their only job that week is to give PowerPoint presentations.
That's pretty awesome. That's pretty cool. I mean, not to bore anyone. No, I don't think that's boring at all. I mean, if you're in college right now, to all our audience, go look into speaking, because I think that if I knew that, I would have totally done that. So is that like a huge scholarship program they kind of do on that, or is that like can you get scholarships with that?
Yeah, definitely. So there's definitely different scholarship opportunities within the school. So it's not like that you get a full ride for going to the university, but that piece of the school is usually expensed. So I can give you a couple examples in the States. University of Florida, University of Pennsylvania. A lot of those schools are very big case competition schools.
Awesome. Yeah, that's so cool. I will definitely have to look into that. So just speaking about, getting like judged on your speech and your presentation skills, how crucial would you say it is to master at something like tonality, or like what is the most crucial part of your speech you should be looking to master?
Yeah, absolutely. I always like to keep things simple, Antonia. For me, it's all about focusing on those simple exercises every day that makes us really good at speaking. So I'll give you the easiest one that I'm happy to demonstrate if you'd like, which is called the random word exercise. So all it is you pick a random word like phone, like mouse, like pad, and you do presentations out of thin air. But what this does is it improves your resiliency as a speaker, because if you're able to talk about random words and just impromptu speak all of them, when you get into the real world, communication becomes a lot easier because you generally already know what you're talking about.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a really cool idea. So do you do these presentations to just like family members, or do you do them to like yourself in the mirror? Like, what would you recommend?
Yeah, all of those solutions are really good ideas, Anthony. Like definitely doing it with yourself, like 5 minutes a day, do it 5 times a day. You can do it with your family members. Of course, if you hire a speech coach, you can do it with, the other accountability members. But if you can't afford a coach, I also recommend Toastmasters. Toastmasters is an organization that's not very expensive. It's like $150 a year, depending on where you are in the world. And you can find accountability buddies to do this with as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's so cool. So when someone's starting out and like they probably are trying to learn just that basic confidence level of speaking in front of people and, getting out there, what's your your biggest tips and recommendations on that level, like building confidence? Would it just be practicing, like you said?
Yeah, I definitely think part of it is definitely practicing, but beyond the obvious stuff, I would say the other piece is to understand the key differences between your fear and your message. So let's imagine for a second, Antonia, we have a boxing ring. One side of the ring is the fear that we have associated to anything. Scared to do this job interview, scared to give a presentation, the fear around that. And the other side of the boxing ring is the message, why you want to share that with the world. So the key here is not removing the fear, because I feel that the fear of communication is really difficult to just remove. I mean, if somebody called me tomorrow and said, hey, I need you to coach Elon Musk, I think I'd be a little bit nervous. I'd be a little, just thinking about it is making me nervous. So even the best communicators are still get nervous unless they're like sociopaths or something. But the key here is to make sure that when your message and your fear meet in the middle of the ring, that your message gets the knockout punch. So what do I mean by that? I was really scared to post videos on YouTube because I started coaching C-suite level executives like CEOs and stuff when I was 22. So there were some people who had been working longer at the company than I was alive. So I had a lot of insecurity, but it was the message of bringing this information to, girls who can't afford me, in third world countries, or people who couldn't afford me. That message was more important than the fear. And that's the key.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. Do you have like a specific kind of goal you set for yourself when you go into these speeches of like kind of knocking out that fear, just get started and do it? Or, like make your purpose bigger than is that kind of just your whole base of that?
Yeah, I would say to your point, Anthony, all of the above, in the sense of depends on your season as a speaker. So if you're getting started with communication, you still haven't been practicing that much, just doing it is good enough. Like the random word exercise, doing that a few times, 10 times, 5 times a day. You'd be surprised, Anthony, if you do that 5 times a day, after a year, you'll have done it more than 1,000 times, which is crazy if you really think about it.
Think about it.
Right. And then the other piece is as you get better at speaking, you develop more confidence. Well, then at that level, it's about saying, okay, I got really good at communication. Why am I doing this? What are my goals? And how can I use those goals to motivate me to speak even better?
Awesome. Yeah. So would you say, just like when it comes out to speaking and everything, what people are focusing on, would you say that the content matters kind of more than the presentation, or the presentation and the content? Which one would you kind of weigh in on that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the famous content versus delivery, right? What's more important? So let me give the simple answer. So the simple answer is this. Let's think of her a second from our high school. So maybe some people didn't go to college or university, but most of us who are listening to this have been to high school. So the question I have to just ponder, it's a rhetorical one, is how much do we actually remember from high school? Right? Like our history teachers, our math teachers, how much do we actually remember? And if you really, think about it, you'll come up with pretty much nothing.
Yeah.
Come up with nothing. So if I asked you, Antonia, what year did the Declaration of Independence get signed? You're probably going to be like, I don't remember. Was it 17? All right. And trust me, I wouldn't know either. I definitely wouldn't. So why is it that we don't remember that information, but the content was fine? Because a lot of these professors are, university educated, they're really smart, yet we don't remember anything.
Yeah.
But if we think about the opposite, right? The opposite, which is think about your favorite speaker, the speaker that inspired you the most. Let's say you take someone like Tony Robbins and you ask somebody, what do you remember from Tony Robbins? And somebody who loves Tony will say something like, yeah, he was really amazing. He was really great. The secret to living is giving. So even with the best communicators on the planet, you generally don't remember 90 to 95% of what they say, which leads us to the following conclusion. Delivery is more important than content, provided that you have a small amount of content that is meaningful to share.
Okay. So it's a matter of people throwing too much content into their things. Okay. So how would you recommend you find those really good content points? Like, how do you know exactly, this is a good little piece and I need to just expand on that?
Beautiful follow-up question. I love that. Yeah, what I would say, Antonia, on that, it's an excellent point, is the best way to figure this out is to understand the following. And I'll repeat that twice for people who are taking notes, is that your audience is your single source of truth. Okay, your audience is your single source of truth. So it's not about what I think. It's not about what you think. It's about who's listening. What do they think? So one strategy I have to easily implement this is every time you share an idea or a presentation, just ask people in the audience, what resonated with you the most? And just write down all of their answers. And what this does is it tells you what's actually working, what's not. I do this all the time in my coaching programs. So let's say I'm trying out a new idea and I ask them what's their biggest key takeaway. If they don't say one of the ideas, then I know that idea isn't really good.
Interesting. So if we were to be implementing this into, so that's great if you have like a crowd for feedback. You're implementing this into like social media sides. Is this just more of how do you get people to comment those things? How do you engage them in that?
Yeah, that's a good point. I would say there's always a way around. Okay. So what I mean by that is even if you're on social, if you have, a few hundred followers, there's probably somebody who's DMing you at some point, just telling them how grateful they are about your podcast, your content. You want to ask questions to those people. So this is what I do more tactically. If people are DMing me and they seem really invested in my content, I did this especially in the early days, a bit less now, but definitely in the early days. I would always respond with a voice note or a video message. And I would just go, hey, Antonia, really appreciate you being here. Thanks so much for following my content. Love to hear, like, what are some of the challenges you have in communication? Why is this important to you to master? And I just listen to the answers.
Interesting. Yeah, that's awesome. Because I'm sure that even brought you more content to post when you were like in a dip, which I'm just starting an Instagram and I definitely know the struggle. So that's awesome. Yeah. So when you are like doing those connections, making those, I guess, trying to reach out as much as possible, is there ever a really good speech tactic to use when doing that first impression, because I know that like that's kind of crucial, a first impression.
Oh yeah, definitely. I would say the bigger principle though, even if the first impression matters, is to really understand what relationship building means, because I feel a lot of people miss that. So let me give you an analogy to explain this, Antonia. Okay. Let's say you meet somebody new every few days, hypothetically. Friendship, just person in general. So this is more than most people. But let's just say on average, you meet somebody new every few days. That means every year, you'll meet, give or take, 100 people. Does that make sense so far? Right?
Yeah.
Once every few days, whatever.
Yeah, right.
Right? It's pretty simple.
If you're a circle, yeah.
Yeah. Let's just say, like, optimistic. It's probably less. Let's just go with 100. And let's say that you live for 50 more years than your current age. So let's say you're 25 and you live until 75. Okay, if we multiply the number of years by the number of people you meet every year, not to make this a math exam or anything, but that's give or take 5,000 people. So why am I telling you all this? I'm telling you all this to explain the following, which is, who do you want those 5,000 people to be? A lot of us don't really get that there's billions of people on the planet and we only get to talk to 5,000. It's pretty crazy when you think about it. So when you enter that frame of mind, whenever you approach a first impression or relationship building, you should ask yourself a very different question, which is, do I want this person to be in my 5,000?
Okay.
Right? So if you mess up the first impression, it doesn't really matter. Just meet 25 people. And if one of them you fall in love with, that's perfect. And then pour into those people and they'll introduce you to more positive people.
That's awesome. Yeah. I've never even thought about that, but I think that is the problem. You get so in your own little groove that you forget how many people are there for you to connect with.
Massive.
Yeah. I know, like meeting 100 people a person a day shouldn't be that difficult. I could walk outside and do that,
There you go.
That's incredible. Yeah. Well, when you are like coming to kind of interview those people, do you have any super like strategical tactics or things that you kind of pick out with people specifically on who you want your 5,000 to be?
I love the questions. Very good. Yeah. Great question. I think for me, and everyone's got their own opinion on this.
Yeah. Purely based on you.
I would say for me, it would be ask the questions that you would be personally excited about if somebody asked you the question.
Okay.
So what that means is like, so for example, I'm very like impact driven. So a lot of my questions for people are like, if you could only solve one problem in the world, what would you solve and why? What are you the most excited about right now? What are you passionate about? What do you care about? So if people don't answer the question with high levels of energy, they're like, yeah, well, I don't particularly want to talk to those people. So that's the way I filter it. But there might be somebody else who's listening to this who's like a huge pen collector. Let's say you love collecting pens for some weird reason. My advice to that person would be go to a pen conference instead of the Bahamas this summer and go nerd out about pens to the 100 people that are there, because there's probably just 100 people there.
Yeah.
And then you'll meet like 7 lifelong friends. So it works in different ways.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's probably something a lot of people need to do, is just start placing themselves in their weird areas of life that they don't think about really getting involved in.
Absolutely.
That's so cool. So honestly, after like with all that, sorry, I keep asking you questions about like communicating and things like that, but like just starting your YouTube, going on a different note here, when you were talking about being nervous about posting videos and things, I feel like you have to film yourself a jillion times before you build that confidence or something like that. How did you kind of move past that and just start posting videos and getting better at it, even though your first one was probably like not your favorite?
Yeah, my first one was definitely not my favorite.
Yeah. I watched my first video and I was like, oh.
Yeah. It's a great point. I would say the first piece is to know that you can only go up from where you start. It's impossible to go down. Trust me, it's really impossible to go down.
Yeah.
That would be the first piece. The other piece is knowing that you should always default with action. Because the best way to get better on camera, even for somebody like me, I had a lot of speaking experience before I started speaking on camera, and I still sucked. I was still bad. Like literally, I started my YouTube channel right there, right in my mom's basement, and I was terrible, right on that couch. I didn't know how to use a video, and I didn't know how to use a phone for video, but I kept getting better every single time, little by little. And then after a year of messing up in my basement, I had saved up enough money, and I was also good enough on camera to go professional. And then I hired an agency to do everything for me. But what I would say is definitely at the beginning, your first year, I always recommend people write it off. So write it off means make the content and be happy with just the fact that you took action. It doesn't even have to be a year. It could be 6 months, 3 months. But after you get over that hump, then you can focus on refining the craft. But I think for 95% of people out there, it's really a matter of just doing it. And I'll give you an easy tactic you don't even need a YouTube channel for. Write down the names of 3 people that you really love in your life and just send them each a 30-second video message telling them how much you appreciate them. It'll really make their day.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you do that like just once a day, or did you keep writing 3 people, or?
Oh yeah, I take this stuff to another unhealthy level, but like
Yeah.
I've probably sent like 100 videos in the last month. But for most people, I would say start with 3 and get the response. Like wait for the response. And then let's say you get one, you might say, oh my God, like nobody sends me video messages. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And when you feel that impact, you'll realize it didn't really matter if you weren't that great on video. It's the thought that counts, and you get better every time.
That's awesome. Yeah, I will have to start doing that, just filming yourself. And I think that's another big thing with Instagram Reels, all those little short blurbs of videos nowadays. Like some people just seem so natural doing it, and other people, or when you do it, at least you feel just so unnatural. Do you like have a way to calm those nerves just so you feel a little more like not so odd, just doing it more?
Yeah, for sure. I would say doing it more is one piece. The other piece as well is to get really close to the impact. So I'll give you an example. I'll tell you a personal story. When I was starting, my speaking career, I hadn't yet really taken Mass Talk really seriously. And then one day I got asked to speak at this leadership conference. There was like 30 girls between the ages of like 7 and like 13. I wasn't getting paid to do it. It's kind of like a pro bono thing. And I still have that memory in my head. It's still etched there. How many girls were so scared of communication, right? They had the red in the face. Nobody was telling them they could be great speakers. They were always nervous all the time. And that was always a beacon of light for me. It always reminded me why I exist in the world, why it's important for me to create YouTube videos because I was, I was young when I started my career, probably 22 or something like that. And I'm the only person those girls and boys can relate to. They can't relate to the 60-year-old dude who's like going, oh, you should like speak better on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't work,
Yeah.
right? They can only relate to me. So and that's where we get to a crossroads. It's either I make the videos or no one does.
Yeah.
So when I got to that level, I was like, crap, I got to take action. And not just for those girls in that room, but for the millions of girls and boys who never get the chance to meet. Right? So when we focus on that, like who suffers if we don't take action, then that really pushes us to take action.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just genuinely curious, what even got you into speaking in the first place? Do you have one moment where you're like, wow, I'm pretty good at this? Like how do people start to realize like maybe I'm not so bad at speaking?
It's funny you say that, because most of my life I sucked at speaking. I know that sounds really weird, but the truth is, I grew up in a city called Montreal. And in Montreal, for those who don't know, you need to know how to speak French. So I didn't know how to speak French, but my parents sent me to a French education system. Of course, to their credit, that was an excellent decision.
Yeah.
But the journey wasn't so fun, because every time I was giving a presentation, I was presenting in a language I didn't even know. So every time I would go up on the stage, I'll go, bonjour.
Yeah.
And that was my life.
Wow.
I think the point is, if I could do it, anyone can. But the other piece as well is I only realized I was good at speaking maybe 5-6 years ago.
Okay. So it took some time. Yeah.
Took some time. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. They really like put you into sink or swim on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really awesome. So when it comes to like those presentations that you were practicing and things and just speaking as much as you did, when you were going in as such a young but experienced individual to these businesses, did you kind of feel a sense of, maybe like you said, you had to have confidence because you're talking to business owners? How did you kind of push past and talk to those business owners?
Yeah, absolutely. I had a lot of imposter syndrome when I started. Going back to what I was saying earlier, Antonia, I was, presenting to people who had worked longer at the company than I was alive. So definitely a lot of fears around that. I think what I would say to help people alleviate that is to really understand what being an expert means. I'll give you an example. You said you're based in Colorado, right?
Yep.
Okay, so let's say I came to Colorado, let's say Denver as a random example. And I said, hey, Antonia, I'm new to the city. I don't really know what to do. What should I do? You'll probably tell me. You'll probably say, hey, Brenden, you should check out, this city, this restaurant, this place, this attraction. Go to these places, enjoy yourself. In the same way that if you came to Montreal and you said, well, Brenden, I don't know what to do here, I'd probably tell you, oh, you should check out this restaurant. You got to go to this attraction place. This place is great. But we're not experts of our own city.
Yeah.
We're not tour guides. Your dad's probably not the mayor of Colorado. I could be wrong.
Nope. Yeah.
Right? One of these days I'll be wrong. One of them will be actually, Brenden, my dad is the senator.
I tour people for Colorado for a living. Yeah.
Right. So same thing with me, right? Is my dad isn't the mayor of Montreal. But why is that with some pieces of information, like directions or things to do in a city, we're super open about sharing, oh yeah, like you should totally do this, with no expertise whatsoever, versus other pieces of information usually related to what we want to do, we're like, oh, I don't know if I should share this. So why is there a discrepancy then? And the reason there's a discrepancy, it goes back to the definition of being an expert. I fundamentally believe, Antonia, that being an expert does not mean, really doesn't mean, that you have a PhD or a master's degree. It just means that you're one step ahead of another person in that problem. So for example, yeah, sure, I might know more about communication than most people do, but there's probably a lot of things about Colorado that I don't know, that I have no clue about. So the key is to teach the people who know just a little bit less than you do. And as a great quote I can share, if you help one person, the world will give you permission to help everyone else. So that's my take, is start with the person you're comfortable serving, like a 5-year-old, and work your way up.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. I've never even thought about it like that, because that imposter syndrome, I think, is what makes people go into paralysis. They're like, oh, screw it, I'm not going to try, because what do I know? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You might know someone more than someone else. So that's what matters. Awesome. Well, with that, I think, is there anything you want to leave our audience, like tip wise, just like communication, getting out there, really good advice for the day?
Yeah, for sure. I can leave with a book recommendation, some life advice.
Yeah.
I would say book recommendation is Thirst by Scott Harrison. I think Scott Harrison's an absolute genius at marketing, branding, and especially storytelling. He's the CEO of Charity Water, and he really helps people gain access to clean water across the world. But beyond that, I think he's a powerful thought leader and definitely one people should follow. And in terms of life advice, I would just ask a question. And the question that I want all of you to think about is this: how would the world change if you were an exceptional communicator? A lot of us, when we think about communication, we see it as a chore. Man, I gotta do this podcast. I gotta get up on a stage and speak. I gotta give this workshop. But instead, ask yourself, how would the world change if you were exceptional at speaking? Imagine the impact that you could make. Start dreaming about your communication skills. And I promise your communication skills will improve too.
Awesome. I loved that. That was awesome. And would you like to kind of tell our audience also where to just find you? Because I think if you're not taking notes on this episode, I'm going to go back and listen and take notes. So just make sure that you're following along and where they can get some more information.
Yeah, absolutely, Antonia. So there's two ways. The first one is definitely the YouTube channel. All you got to do is type Master Talk in one word, and you'll find all of my YouTube videos on the YouTube search engine. And the second way is, if you're interested in coaching, come to one of my free sessions. It's like a free training session. It's an interactive Zoom call where I coach people for free. And if you want to join that, all you have to do is register at rockstarcommunicator.com.
Awesome. Yeah. I hope that a ton of you got a ton of information from this. You all work on being better communicators, because it is so crucial in the world today, especially with everything, being more separate. So that is our show today. Thank you so much for tuning into the Local Crown podcast. Brenden, thank you. That was amazing. And I appreciated every moment of it. We'll catch you guys next time.
Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you learned something. If you have questions, email us at info@thelocalcrown.com. And if you want to get featured in our publication, Inside the Empire, alongside John Lee Dumas, the entrepreneur on fire, Jayson Waller, the CEO of Power Home Solar, Sharon Lechter, Dan Caldwell, the man that started Tap Out, and the limitless man himself, Jim Kwik, for free, then head over to thelocalcrown.com/become a contributor.